Welcome to Arizona Bill Watch, the show where you get satisfaction if you're not getting it from your state legislators. We report and comment on what happens at the state legislature and alert you on what is coming up next. And now, Arizona Bill Watch.
Hello everyone, welcome to Arizona Bill Watch for another lively discussion of important and controversial bills. I am your host, Jose Borrajero. Thank you for watching. There is a lot going on at the Capitol these days, so stay tuned because we have a fantastic show for you today. But before we do that, some housekeeping items. Number one, we would love for you to watch the whole show from beginning to end. However, you may also fast forward to the bills of your choice by using the handy chart that we have placed down below. Secondly, if you like what you see, please make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. It means a lot to us. Third, it costs money to do what we do. So if you like what you see, you may contribute by going to our website, azpeopleslobbyist.com. So with all that out of the way, let's look at the first bill. Now, I have been noticing, you folks know that we deal primarily with the state legislature. However, we cannot ignore the governor, can we?
No.
Pretty tough.
Especially this particular governor. What has been happening is normally you do not have bills ready for the governor until much later in the session, okay? Mm-hmm. But we have had a few bills that went through both chambers and were sent to the governor. Uh-huh. Now, some of those, about 15, I believe, were budget bills, and she vetoed every one of them. So she doesn't want to have anything to do with the budget, which is very, very upsetting, very bad. But then again, it is who it is. Mm-hmm. Okay. But then there were others that were sent to her. 4 other bills have been sent to her, 2 of which she vetoed, and 2 are still pending. And 2 she signed. She actually signed 2 bills into law. However, the 2 bills that she signed into law were just housekeeping type bills. No controversy there at all. But she can't say, yes, I did sign two bills already.
I am bipartisan.
Yeah, I signed two bills. I am not that bad. Now the bills. Do you guys have any ideas to the 2 bills that other than the budget, the 2 bills that she vetoed?
I looked at them, but I don't recall exactly what they are.
Yeah, okay. One was the municipal. Well, one would have banned or prohibited cities from imposing a sales tax on rentals. Individual rentals, not business, and the reason for that is, of course, we are in the middle of a recession actually, and lots of inflation, and that is affecting people in the lower echelons of the economy, more so than the others, and this would be just a little relief for renters so that they don't have to pay that tax, but she vetoed that. I guess she's okay with the lower middle class people being screwed by this. And the other.
But she doesn't look at it that way. She looks at it because ultimately, even though the landlords are charging the tenants, she's looking at it as the landlords, the investors, are the ones who are getting hit with the money. That's the way she looks at it.
Well, and the other thing that she claims is that by taking away this tax, you're going to have to fire policemen and firemen because you won't have the money to pay the salaries for these people, which is a bunch of bull, because right now the cities are flush with money because of the revenue sharing that they do. Because when you take the whole tax, the whole sales tax revenue, then they give that back to the cities, a good portion of it. So they have plenty of money to fund all of these areas. They don't have to rely on the on the rental tax. So that's one big lie.
Let me clarify myself. It's not that I know that that's what, but that's my speculation that that's what she's thinking, because they don't like for investors. So any way they can,
Yeah, but everybody knows that corporations don't pay any taxes.
right,
The corporation writes the check, but they pass it right on to the customer.
right.
So when you pay a rental tax, it's the individual that's actually paying the tax, no matter how you look at it. Anyway, that's that, and the other thing, as I mentioned, that she claims that reduction in revenue is going to cause the cities to go to a point where they can't have policemen and firemen. They always play that card. Anytime you say, cut taxes, say, well, no, we can't cut the police. Well, there's a whole lot of other things you can cut besides fire and police.
Yeah.
So that's one bill that she vetoed. The other bill that she vetoed is Senate Bill 1305, and that bill would have prohibited school personnel, and that includes not just teachers, but other people involved in the school system. It would prohibit them from advancing what is commonly referred to as critical race theory,
I do remember.
dealing with race and ethnicity. And the claim there is that, and boy, she's a piece of work, really, because she says, well, the school boards should be independent. They shouldn't have the right to choose whatever curriculum they want to choose. It's hard to argue that, of course. But do you really agree that they should have the right to tell Gloria that because she's white, she's guilty of racism, and that because your race has a lot to do with whatever ills happen to somebody else?
Mm-hmm.
Well,
So-
I think they should be able to tell Gloria that, but they can't tell me that.
Well, they can't tell me that either. Because they are only targeting white people,
I know, yeah.
okay? And as you know, well, I feel your pain because I know what you feel now. And you know why? Because I used to be white. Honestly. Honestly. I used to be white until I moved to this country.
Oh, but now you're a person of color.
Now I am a Hispanic. So I am safe. You can't. But you guys, anyway, she vetoed that bill. And now, there's a silver lining on every cloud, okay?
What is that?
That she's going to have to wear these vetoes as an albatross around her neck come election time. And even dyed-in-the-wool Democrats would have to admit that this woman is a piece of work, that she does not deserve to be the governor now, and definitely does not deserve to be reelected as governor.
Well,
So-
maybe she can run for president after Biden gets through. then we can have two losers in a row.
Anyway, that's our little commentary on the what's happening. We will keep you posted as to what's happening with the governor on a weekly basis. See if anything develops there. Senate Bill SB 1250. Short title, Employers' Vaccines Religious Exemption. This bill is going to be heard at the House Health and Human Services Committee on, I believe it's Monday, this is the 13th. Is that Monday, the 13th? I believe it is.
Yes.
It was introduced by
Champ.
Senator Shamp. And this is such a common sense thing. We shouldn't even need a bill to do this, but we do, unfortunately. And all it does is it prohibits an employer from taking into account the individual's vaccine status in determining whether he should be employed or not.
In the case of an emergency, the pandemic type.
Well, at any time, whether it's it's a so-called emergency or not. This comes into play when somebody applies for a job, and then the employer can say, "Well, are you vaccinated?" "Well, no, I'm not." "Well, we can't use you. You're prohibited from doing that according to this bill."
Okay, I thought I read it a little differently, but maybe I'm wrong. Go ahead, Archie.
What do you mean? you
Because
think-
I thought I read it that in the case of an emergency like the pandemic we just had, that the employers cannot mandate.
Well, that's included in the bill also.
Okay,
Yeah,
that's what I thought,
It's
okay.
both, yeah. But, my experience has been that if an employee, certainly at the government level, if they can find any way of getting out of going to work, that's exactly what they're going to do. And if they can find any way around rules, that's exactly what they're going to do. Now, I think in this particular instance, I think the idea is valid. I think it's a good idea. But if you are my employee and you come to me and you say, I cannot get this vaccine, but it's going to protect you and the rest of your employees, and then you get sick. If I can't, fail to employ you because of the vaccine, and you get sick because of the illness that the vaccine is supposed to protect you from, then should I be entitled to then not pay you for the days that you're off? Well, I mean, if it's good on one side, it should be good on the other.
Well, and with that being said, though, I think today the misconception, and I know that the CDC and whomever has revised what the definition of a vaccine versus a shot. Back when we were the polio, that took 100 years. I think today everything is being misconstrued as a vaccine when they aren't. They're shots, just like the COVID. It wasn't a vaccine. A vaccine protects you from any illness. These shots today are not doing that. They're not going through the rigorous protocols and what do they call those testing? The testing, I can't think of that word. But anyway, but they're not going through all of that they used to, like the polio vaccine and some of the vaccines we got when we were young. And so,
I didn't get a vaccine for polio. I got a sugar cube.
oh. Well, you're a little older than me.
Is that why you're so sweet? Archie's the sweetest, most likable person that I have ever known.
That's where my disposition comes from.
That's right. But with that being said, so like I said, I'm going to say that I am for this bill because I think the whole idea of what a vaccine is, and I don't think any entity should be requiring you. Where I do have to say something, though, is that I know in the healthcare, is this going to apply to them also? Because I know with the healthcare, they're told they have to have the flu vaccine. They are mandated to take the vaccines. Is this going to apply to that?
Should. There's no exceptions in it.
Yeah. Well, the one thing that that validates this whole thing and that invalidates some of the objections to this, Archie, you mentioned about the guy who does not get the vaccine, he gets sick. Well, even even the staunchest proponents of these vaccines, especially the COVID one, because basically that's what this is all about, okay? It was never an issue before. But even people who have been vaccinated are perfectly capable of getting it.
That's right.
And transmitting it,
That's right.
okay? So you're not protecting. You may say you are, but you're not protecting the other employees by having this person vaccinated. That's number one. Number two, you mentioned about, okay, so he does not vaccinate and you hired him and he gets sick. Well, it's just like any other sickness. If you have sick pay days, as part of your contract or whatever, well, you pay him while he's sick. And if you don't, he doesn't get paid. It doesn't change anything.
Right. And that's why I go back to they're not vaccines, they're shots. They have
But regardless.
changed, right, and they don't protect you.
Yeah, regardless of that, the point about the man getting sick or the woman getting
Right.
sick, and then having to be paid. No, that does not change. So anyway, I think that the consensus here is that Gloria and I are in favor of this, and Art just kind of lukewarm on it.
I'm not opposed to it.
No, I didn't say you were
I
opposed
know
to
you
it. I
did.
say you're lukewarm.
I know.
Are you lukewarm?
I'm just want to make sure that the people out there understand that, I'm not opposed to it. I'm just not sure I'm totally in favor of it because I think it's incomplete.
Yeah,
And
he's lukewarm
That's
on
true.
it.
And that's why I think you out there, you need to go look at the bill yourself and form your own opinion.
And contact your legislator, or legislators, if more than one, with your opinion. That's the whole idea. We want the public to be reactive to what's going on. House Bill HB 2014. Short title: STOs, scholarships, corporate tax credits. And again, this bill, it's going to be in the Senate Finance Committee on the 13th, and it was introduced by Representative Livingston. Was so long a senator, I have a hard time calling him Representative Livingston. I tried to call him Senator Livingston. So every time his name comes up, I have to think.
Well, you have to think about term limits.
There's no such thing in Arizona. Come on.
I know that. That's what I'm pointing out.
It's a revolving door.
Yeah.
We already have term limits.
You move from the Senate to the House and then back to the Senate. Yeah.
So anyway, Representative now Livingston introduced this bill. I don't like this bill because I think that the limits on the corporate contribution, which this would expand, those limits are adequate as far as I know, as far as I'm concerned.
As they are now.
As they are now. So I don't see any need to increase them, and as a result of that, I am opposed to this bill. But you guys may have a different opinion.
No, I'm with you on this one.
No, I'm totally opposed to this, but I'm opposed to it for other reasons. I just don't like STOs. It's just another source of income outside the stream of the state budget for our school districts, and I think that's just totally wrong. I don't like STOs at all.
Well, okay. So you dislike it for a different reason, but we all in agreement that this is not a bill that we would support, and we would encourage people to not support it.
I dislike it for the same reason you dislike it, but I dislike it for another reason also. Yeah.
In addition to.
I just have more dislikes than you have.
In other words, if this bill, instead of expanding it, it would be reducing it, Archie would be in favor of it.
No, I would not.
doesn't
I am against STOs. Period.
Well, but any reduction in the ability to do so would be a step in the right direction.
Well,
right?
if you reduced it to zero, that'd be great. Yeah.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
okay.
If you're just going to reduce it from 15 million to 14 million, that doesn't have any major effect on me.
Okay, so regardless of how we get there, all three of us agree that we don't like this bill.
Correct.
Senate Bill 1021, short title: Attorney General, Legislature, Legal Challenges. This bill is going to be heard in the House Government Committee on the 15th, which I think it's Wednesday next week.
Correct.
It was introduced by Senator Kavanaugh, and it requires, and let me quote here from the bill, requires to defend all laws passed by the legislature and signed by the governor against all legal challenges. Now, it is my understanding that the Attorney General should defend all laws that have been lawfully passed against the challenges. But apparently now, he or she, whoever it happens to be, has the option that defend some that he likes and not defend the ones that he doesn't like.
Or she.
Or she.
And I think it's Mays.
Yeah. So the way I understand the bill is that they would not, he or she would no longer have that option that if a challenge comes up for a law, that they have to defend it.
Right.
Is that correct?
And I remember us talking about this one, and we all agreed on that also.
Okay.
What possible purpose could the Attorney General have other than to enforce the laws of the state of Arizona?
Right.
I mean, that should be a given. It shouldn't even be open to discussion.
Exactly.
Unfortunately, it is because they haven't been doing it.
Yep, and because
Well, then let's fire the Attorney General.
Well, there's nothing I would like more than to fire the current Attorney General, but ain't gonna
It
happen.
doesn't make any difference who it is. I mean, if they're not doing their job, they're not doing their job. So get rid of them. You know, I mean, it's simple as that. Do your job or leave.
Well, this will provide, I don't know, like many other bills that we pass in this legislature, it may not have any teeth in it, any penalty for not obeying it.
It don't.
So it's just like so many other bills, but this would give us the opportunity or the ability to, I guess, to fire the Attorney General if he's not doing or she's not doing the job.
right, and the reason why they don't defend it is because it's partisan.
Well, I mean, and because the Attorney General is an elected position,
Yep.
then you're going to have to do a recall on the Attorney General. And, I mean, that should be almost an automatic thing. I mean, the Attorney General doesn't have any options in this, and never has, and otherwise there's no reason to have an Attorney
Exactly.
General. They just, get rid of the office if they're not going to enforce the laws. Simple.
Exactly. So we all agree on this one.
We all agree on this one that it is a good bill.
Don't get carried away.
Yeah.
Well, folks, we know that the First Amendment guarantees freedom of speech. Unfortunately, it does not provide for free speech. What we do costs money to do. Therefore, we are taking a short break. We'll be right back with a lot more about the state legislature.
After the commercial.
Impact. Impact.
Welcome back, folks. Next is Senate Bill SB 1565. Short title, Ballot Processing Electronic Adjudication Limitation. This bill is going to be heard in the House Municipal Oversight and Elections Committee. Why municipal oversight and elections are in the same committee, I don't know. But that's the way it is, folks. This does deal with elections, and it would be heard in that committee on the 15th. It was introduced by Senator Carroll, and the main thing here is that if you're going to have software used in these machines, that the software may not include any artificial intelligence or learning hardware. Apparently, and I'm not familiar with how these things work, so I cannot speak intelligently about it, but apparently some of these machines have software in it that can have artificial intelligence, that they can keep track of things and so on. And of course, this would make it more or easier for them to be tampered with. So what this bill attempts to do is, since we do have to have machines at so far, to make it so that it's less likely that they can be tampered with. That's my impression on it. Now, I don't know, what do you guys think?
No, I think that's right. They've had learning software around for a long time. And basically what it does is, it looks at what you do on a computer or otherwise, and it then calculates what your habits are. And then you'll get commercials, you'll get advertisements that is consistent with what you do and how the apps you open on Facebook or Twitter or
that I'm aware of. What I wasn't sure about is how that would affect the validity of the votes,
the ballots,
the ballot. How
counting
that,
it.
Why would we have an interest in that? But anyway, I'll give them the benefit of the doubt that this is a valid reason, and I am in favor of the bill.
I am too.
Archie?
Well, I am too, up to a point. I understand that this bill applies to counting votes in federal, county, and state elections.
Right.
But what about city elections, town elections, school board elections? What about those? Shouldn't it also apply to those? And it doesn't.
I saw that. Oh, it doesn't? Because I thought I saw that in there.
Yeah. I specifically looked for that, and it says that it's going to do it in federal, county, and state elections. But it doesn't say anything about city, towns, or school board elections. So I think that it just falls short in that aspect. Otherwise, I think it's a good bill.
Okay, I am going to guess that the reason why it stops short of requiring the school boards and the city councils from being included here is that they needed to exclude them or not mention them so that they could advance this bill. Keep in mind that these Republican legislators, when they introduce a bill, they have to do it with the idea that they would have 47 people, 100% approval by the whole caucus. In other words, if one, because the Democrats are going to be voting against any of these good bills in lockstep. So it requires 31 votes in the House to pass a bill. There are 31 Republicans. It takes 16 votes in the Senate to pass a bill. There are 16 Republicans. So in order to satisfy all 16 in the Senate and all 31 in the House, you have to always, every bill that we see here is a compromise. Okay?
Well,
and so we cannot be too harsh on them because of that.
Well, I was also wondering, do you think it could be because the local and city elections are supposed to be nonpartisan?
Well, but there's a bill pending to allow them to be partisan.
But we also know that all these bills contradict each other, so I wonder if that's one of the reasons.
Well, I don't know. I was thinking about it from the standpoint of the school board elections because there's not much intelligence there.
No.
Anyway.
Got a point.
So are we in agreement that we all like this bill?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. And folks, listen to us. We know what we're talking about. We actually have, believe it or not, we have read these bills. We look into them quite thoroughly, which is more than a lot of people do.
Yeah.
Senate Bill SB 1596. This bill now, and I explain why now and not before, now it deals with polling places, office spaces, appropriation. This bill is going to be in the House Municipal Oversight and Elections Committee on the 15th, which is Wednesday. The reason why, when you look at the short title for this bill, it says now, it's because this bill, SB 1596, had a totally different subject prior to now. What it is that it was the target of what they called a strike everything amendment. So what they did is they took out all the language that was in this bill and replaced it with the language from another bill. Okay, and that's why you have now this particular bill with this particular language. We agree that we are not fans of this type of thing because it is sneaky and it is just not the right way to do things. However, that's the way it has been done, and they continue to do it, and so we have to live with it as much as we dislike. So again, we're going to be dealing with the language of the bill itself, not so much how it got there. Okay, and the language of the bill is one that is extremely important. The reason why it's extremely important is because one of the problems that we have been experiencing, and one of the excuses for having all of these polling places in places that favor one party over another, and it has been favoring the Democrats versus the Republicans. The reason we've been doing, the excuse that they've been given is that we don't have enough polling places in the precinct. You cannot vote by precinct because we don't have enough places for you to vote in. So we have to go to these voting places. Well, this bill removes that because it makes it mandatory that schools would make it, they have to provide the space. And boy, there's plenty of schools, so you're not going to have a shortage of space if you can go to any school and say, yeah, you're going to provide the space for the balloting. But in addition to that, it doesn't just do that, but it also appropriates funds so that this can be done without any hardship to the schools. So all around, it is a good bill in my opinion.
I agree. And also, if I'm not mistaken, there is another bill regarding the precinct voting. I don't know where we're at with that. We had discussed it before, but with this bill, it should allow for precinct voting, where people vote in their precinct and don't have to go to the other side of town or wherever they're at, that they should be able to just go to their precinct.
I agree. Yeah,
There's another bill, and I don't recall the number on it or what it's happening. That let me see. That involves the schools as well. This one deals with a county, city, town. Oh yeah, this is the one, a town or school district office. So yeah, if you're part of the government, and the schools, they are government schools. I mean, they like to think that they're not, maybe sometimes, but they are government schools. Yeah. If any of these spaces would have to. Now, what I was thinking is that there's another bill, and it could be this one, I'm not sure, that makes it a school holiday, makes the election day a school holiday, and that way you don't have interference of the voting process with the teaching process. And I don't know if this is the Archie. Do you recall if that's in this bill or someplace else?
No, it's not in this bill.
Okay, so
but there is a provision in this bill that allows the principal of the school to opt out if using the school program facilities would interfere with the conduction of schools, and I think that's good. Mm-hmm. But the bill that you're thinking about, and I don't recall the number of it. There's a different bill,
right?
And yet these cover much of the same things. This one covers a lot of the same thing as that other bill does, but the other bill is more specific than this one.
Well, it's more specific. The other bill, and I wish I remembered it, but the other bill, it's more specific in that it requires it's a school holiday. So that objection of the principal does no longer apply.
Right.
But it's less specific because it doesn't provide for any kind of funding, and that can be an excuse. So this one provides funding for the additional personnel that will be needed, etc.
Why would you need additional personnel? I don't understand the funding on this. I mean, I really don't. We already pay for every government building, so why do we need to pay for the government building a second time? Why do we need to appropriate $10 million to cover the cost of using a government building for election purposes? That doesn't make any sense.
And I agree with you, because when I was looking at the bill, that was what I thought too. Well, why do we need more money? But I have no idea what the thought behind that is.
Well, I'm going to go one step further on that, and if you read that, and of course there's an amendment to this which limits it to, I think, June of 2025.
25, yeah.
But it provides that any of that $10 million that is appropriated is free from the lapse statute. Well, I mean, all that does is gives the heads of these department additional funds that's left over to take all of their employees out for entertainment and food and drink at taxpayers' expense. I mean, no, this is silly. Get rid of this stuff on the anti-lapse stuff. Let it go back to the taxpayers where it belongs.
Well, yes, I agree. But as you guys know, and we talk about this quite often, folks, most of these bills are not perfect. And some of them are not perfect because of ineptitude, but some of them are not perfect because you have to reach a compromise to get the bill done. And
Have any of these bills been perfect? No. So just wanted to say that. Anyway.
Well, I am against the anti-lapsing. I just no. You can have millions of dollars that don't lapse, and what are they going to do with it? I mean, it's just a hidden slush fund in their budget.
okay.
So no.
We can talk about that some other time. Maybe there'll be a bill somewhere along the line. I doubt it, but there may be. Senate Bill SB 1243, STOs, individual income tax credits. This bill is going to be heard in the House Ways and Means Committee on Wednesday, the 15th. It was introduced by Senator Mesnard. And basically all it does is that it increases the tax credit that individuals can have in their state income tax if they contribute to STOs, which are scholarship
Tuition
organizations.
Yeah. Scholarship tuition organizations. The state has made huge increases in education funding in the last couple of years. It makes sense that it would limit the individual's tax, that the limit on the individual's tax credit would also be increased if you want to contribute to a particular school. And there are provisions there that make it so that you can't, there are certain things you cannot do. There are limitations, but essentially, if you have a tax liability, you can take some or all of that tax liability and designate it to go to an STO to the tune of, used to be 500 was the maximum. Now it increases it to 1456. And then the joint return from 1,000 to 2,902. Why those odd numbers? 2,902. Why not 2,900?
Who knows?
There must be a reason for that.
Well, I mean, they're just doubling the 1456.
Well, yeah, but why 1456?
I don't understand that either. Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, this essentially doubles what you can contribute to an STO, and some people don't like it.
Me.
I'm with Archie on.
Okay, so I am
For both.
the lone one. I think that any time that you have a control over how your money is spent is a good thing. And this gives you control as to how your tax money is spent, at least to a certain extent. And if you want to give it to an STO, if you want to give it to somebody else, as long as it's within the law, I'm all for it.
Okay, I'm going to use your word right back. You say, if you want to give it. Now, what's the definition of give? That is, you don't get something in return. It's a gift. And here you're getting something in return. You're getting a reduction, a direct reduction in the dollar for dollar on the taxes that you have to pay. So that's not a gift.
Okay, let me rephrase
That's
that.
buying your donation.
That's, and I agree with you on that,
It's not a
Archie.
gift, it's a transfer.
Well, but unfortunately, it's transferring money to schools.
There's,
And over and above what the state provides for in their budget. And it's just a slush fund for the
Well,
schools.
if I understand this correctly, it applies mostly to private schools anyway, who do not get state funding anyway.
Well, this particular bill, but I mean, the other bills dealing with STOs, they make it very clear it applies to public schools. And I mean, all we're doing is giving the schools additional money outside the budgets. And so then they don't have to tell us about this. They can come in and say, well, we need more money, need more money, but they're not telling you about the slush funds they've got here. No, this is a totally bad bill. STOs is totally a bad thing. Just
Okay.
fund the schools the way the schools need to be funded.
Exactly.
And forget all of this subterfuge that they're foisting off on the public. That's just a
And with
subterfuge.
that comment, the more money that we're putting into the schools, we keep putting more and more into them, and our test scores were going down, down, down. And I don't even get all this money is not being used to what it's supposed to be used for. It is a slush fund.
Okay, so we disagree on that.
I have one other thing to say. Going back to the one with the corporate, whatever bill that was, the HB 2014. The other thing I read in that bill, which I was kind of surprised, this is with the corporate, is that they have to get permission if a corporation is going to donate all that money, that they have to get permission. I think whoever they're donating to, they have to, whatever school or whatever, they have to get permission from the IRS. And the IRS has to give them permission to be able to make do you know anything about that? Or what the purpose of that?
We don't know anything about that, and we better stick to this one. So I think
I
that.
meant to bring it up the last time and I
Yeah,
forgot.
STOs are a way for the individual to determine how his tax money is used. And I agree that it's good on the basis of that, on the basis that I like to have control as to where my tax money is being used. You guys don't like the idea? Fine, it's 2-1. You guys read the bill. You guys decide which way you want to go on it.
That's the whole point of our discussions, is let them take a look and see what they want to do.
I meant to bring that up at the last one, and because I don't have my notes. But anyway,
Well, one of the things that this bill did do is it says, well, I can't.
Senate Bill SCR 1018, short title, Prohibit Tax Monitoring Vehicle Mileage. It's going to be in the House Ways and Means Committee on the 15th, Wednesday next week, introduced by Senator Huffman. And this bill is not it's not an SB bill, it's an SCR bill. What that means is a Senate concurrent resolution. If both the House and the Senate approve this bill, then it does not go to the governor. It does not require a governor's signature. It goes directly to the Secretary of State to be placed on the ballot for the 2024 election, I believe. And it has to be that way because it is a constitutional amendment. That is a state constitutional amendment.
right.
And very simply what it does, and there's a reason why we need to do this. We should not have to do this. Not in a free country.
Right.
We shouldn't have to do this. But we do because there's a movement afoot to discourage people from driving their automobiles, their cars. And there's a whole host of things that they're doing, such as limiting highways, narrowing highways, requiring bike lanes, and monitoring people's use of their vehicle, either by GPS or by taxing the fuel even more, or taxing the movement. This is something that is right from the communist countries. I mean, where you don't have freedom of movement. And we're moving very much in that direction. So this bill is designed to head off that particular movement in Arizona. And as a result of that, I am 100% in favor of it.
I am too.
I am too. And
I
this
don't
one
thi-
was real little too.
Yeah, very, very simple, folks.
It was very simple.
If you
This
don't,
was a perfect bill.
if you never read a bill, read this
Yeah,
one.
this one.
Go to acleg.gov and search for this bill and read it, because it's only a couple of lines. And don't stop there, but go on to the to contacting your legislators.
Well, you know, the state of Arizona is already doing this to a degree.
Yeah, and that's not good.
Well, I understand it's not good, but if you have an all-electric vehicle, or if you have a hybrid vehicle, then when you renew your license plate, then they charge you extra money just because you're not burning enough gasoline. And so they're losing the taxes on the gasoline you would burn if you had just a gas-powered vehicle. So I know I pay that every year.
No. Well, yeah, but this is
Do you have
because
do you have an
wait a
electric?
second. This tax is it's the usual fuel tax, which is for repairs and maintenance of the highway. So because the hybrid vehicle does not use enough gas, they use the highway. They create the need for highway repairs, the same as a gas vehicle, but don't pay the tax, and this is an equalizer. So this is a totally different thing. What we're talking about here is something designed and for everyone, not just hybrids or for everyone, and it's not designed to pay for the repairs of the highway. It's designed to discourage you from going from place to place.
Yeah, they want you to use public transportation.
Public transportation or bicycle or whatever.
Yeah, so you do remember the bill that was introduced last year, right? Where the state of Arizona was going to enter into an agreement with the federal government to build a new interstate highway system that could only be used by electric cars.
Oh, no, I hadn't heard that one.
Right. I
Okay.
haven't seen a bill to that effect this year, but they haven't abandoned the idea. So anyway, we're all in favor of this bill.
Yes, we are.
Okay, SCR 1018, you're in favor of it, and when it does come up, vote in favor of it. Hey, folks, stay tuned during the commercial break because we have a lot more discussion of important and controversial bills coming your way.
Impact. Impact.
House Bill HB 2332. Short title, Firearms Safety Training Schools. This will be heard in the Senate Education Committee on the 15th, and it was introduced by Representative Bliss. And all it does is that it requires that schools have a firearms safety program, but it's not the typical firearms safety program as we know it. It has strictly to do with teaching kids to avoid having an accident. It doesn't teach them how to use that firearm, simply to make sure that they do not handle it improperly and get hurt in the process. This type of education, as far as I'm concerned, belongs in the home. It does not belong in the school. Unfortunately, either some parents either don't know or don't care, and so the kids are exposed to danger if they come across a firearm, and so this will be a good thing.
I'm opposed to this because, in my opinion, we need to be teaching reading, writing, math, and science. And this is a parental responsibility, so I'm opposed to this bill.
Archie?
This is a total waste of time.
Yeah.
Total waste of
Total
time.
waste.
Let me tell you why it's a total
Oh, and
waste
it's
of
a
time.
slush fund. Go ahead.
It's a total waste of time because the person that's teaching this and the person that's teaching it has great credentials, but you got to use a stick gun. You know, you can't use a real gun.
Well, that was one of my-
You got to use just a piece of wood.
Right.
And they don't teach them how to fire the gun. They don't teach them how to put the gun on safety. How are you going to do that
Right,
with a
and-
wooden gun? You can't do that.
Well, and that was what I remember talking about the last time we talked about this, is that if you're going to teach firearm safety, you need to have a gun.
You
And
know,
you have to have you can't pretend. And so anyway,
they won't even recognize it. They see a real gun and they say, wait a minute, this is not made out of wood. How do I handle this?
yeah.
Well, just to cover it a little bit further, Switzerland requires compulsory military training and education and requires everybody have a gun. And they are the lowest in gun violence in the world. So there's something to be said for teaching people what a gun is, how it operates, and why it operates. Mm-hmm. But this is useless. I mean,
Well,
using
The one thing that we're forgetting in this discussion is that, and this is something that I keep on harping on, is that we are not operating in a vacuum. Okay, we have an atmosphere in this country, even in this state, at this point, where if we tried to make gun training mandatory in schools, the way it should be, where they actually have real guns and they actually learn how to operate them and then go to the range and do some shooting and that sort of thing. If we try to do that,
But I'm opposed to that also in the schools. For me, as I said, that's a parent's responsibility. That is not a school responsibility.
But that falls in the same category as playing football or playing basketball or whatever it is, as an extracurricular activity that kids do. And it would be not compulsory, it would be voluntary. But we're getting off of the real subject here, which is we're moving the ball in the right direction by requiring this. It doesn't get us there. It just puts us a little bit closer. Maybe next year, if we can get this through, which we won't anyway, because the governor would veto it. But if we can get this through, maybe later on we can improve it. It's just an incremental thing.
I think.
So anyway, the consensus is that I like it. You two don't like it.
Correct.
So you guys make up your own mind.
Well, I like it. I just don't think, I think they should be using real guns, not wood sticks.
I don't like it at all, so.
House Bill HB 2309. The short title now, not before, but now, is Law Enforcement Sovereign Authority. It would be heard in the Senate Military Affairs, Public Safety, and Border Security Committee on Wednesday, the 15th. Introduced by Representative Jones and it essentially declares Arizona's sovereign authority over federal laws, treaties, orders, rules, regulations, etc., etc. This bill is going to end up being a feel-good bill. I don't think that it can cut constitutional muster, even though the intention is to, apparently, it doesn't say so in the bill, but the intention here is, I believe, to exert the state's sovereignty as per the 10th Amendment of the Constitution. I have, in my own opinion, given this a question mark, meaning that I am not for or against the bill. I don't have a consensus. I think that I like the idea, but I don't think it will fly. I think we're going to have a challenge, a constitutional challenge on this no matter what. Assuming that the governor signs the bill, which is a huge assumption. But you guys may disagree with that.
I'm surprised it even made it out of the House and over to the Senate at this point. I mean, looking at the bill, it violates the oath of office that every public employee takes, and I don't know how you're going to get around that. The point here is who decides on what authority, because it applies only when the Attorney General renders an opinion. If the law enforcement agency believes that the order is unconstitutional, then they can exert the provisions of the bill. But how do you determine that it's unconstitutional? And how can you act before it's determined that it's unconstitutional? And it also calls for the legislature to direct the Attorney General to render an opinion as to whether the act is constitutional or not. It opens up a big can of worms, honestly. Well, I assume when you say unconstitutional, you're talking about the U.S. Constitution and not the Arizona Constitution.
Right.
And I don't think that if I'm a member of the Phoenix Police Department that I have the authority to make a challenge as to whether or not an enactment by the U.S. Congress is constitutional or unconstitutional. That's just not within my purview. The Supremacy Clause is very clear that,
Okay, so you're not in favor of this bill?
No, I'm not in favor of it.
And you're not in favor of this bill either, or are you?
No, I really don't know, because I remember this discussion before, and what I said is the federal government, in my opinion, oversteps its constitutional authority anyway. So I believe that if the state does not agree with the federal law, that they should be able to enforce the law. And I remember you saying about that they're not holding up their oath of office. As I said, I'm not sure about all this, because I question the whole federal government's overreach of the constitutional.
Yeah, anytime that you have an oath of office saying that you're going to defend and so on, anytime they refer to a law, they say a lawful act or lawful law or whatever. In other words, if it's an unconstitutional act, then you're not bound by the oath. The problem is who determines whether it's constitutional or not. So anyway, the biggest thing on this bill, and the reason why I was so hesitant on it, is that there's a lot. It has a lot of parts here, a lot of things that can have an effect one way or the other. So I am not so sure about this bill. But now both of you are. Now wait a second. You're also in the middle, like me?
I'm in the middle, I think.
Okay.
I think
and
I
Archie,
tend
and
to.
Archie doesn't like it?
I think it's going to be, just like 1070, it's going to be declared unconstitutional.
And I lean more towards I like the bill. Okay, I'm going to say that. So.
Okay. So you dislike it, you like it, I'm in the middle. You guys have to make up your own mind. No help from us, guys. House Bill HB 2617, carrying of firearms, constables. This bill is going to be in the Senate Military Affairs, Public Safety, and Border Security, and that's going to be on the 15th, Wednesday, introduced by Representative Bliss, and it adds constables and deputy constables to the list of individuals who can be classified as peace officers for the purpose of carrying firearms while carrying out their duties. To qualify, they have to meet certain training and background requirements. I'm kind of mildly in favor of this. What is it that the constables do, and do they often face hostility? And if they're engaged in some lawful execution of, I think they serve warrants and things of that nature.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So they should be in a position where they can defend themselves if they've had the proper training. So I don't see anything wrong with this.
I'm in favor.
Maybe they just have to be able to run real fast and hope they can outrun a bullet. No, I mean, I don't even know why this is even coming up. I mean, these are police officers. They need to be carrying a weapon.
Not necessarily. Constables are not peace
Not all.
officers.
Right.
Not all of them are.
Right.
Now, some may be, I don't know, maybe can you be a cop and also have a part-time job as a constable? I don't know.
I have no idea.
And aren't constables elected?
No, the head constable is, but the
Okay.
deputy constables are
Okay,
not.
all right. So,
I'm in favor of this. I think-
yeah, I'm in favor of it too. Keep in mind that in Arizona, anybody can carry a firearm, civilian or otherwise. So, unless you're prohibited for some reason,
And this bill also, they say that they have to go through
training.
Police officer training,
yeah,
post-training. Yeah.
training and mental evaluations and all of that. So I think it kind of covers everything.
Okay, so I like the bill. Gloria likes the bill.
Yes.
Archie.
Yeah, I like the bill. I mean,
Okay.
I just think it's, I mean, that the police officers, they should be required to carry a gun.
But
I know
again-
you don't
but
think
again-
that they're police officers, but they are.
Okay. So the consensus, all three of
We'll
us.
say
like
all
it.
yes.
So, folks, if you're listening to us, and they may not be, okay, but if you're listening to us, contact your legislator and request that they vote in favor of this bill.
Arizona Bill Watch, the show where you get satisfaction if you're not getting it from your state legislators. Arizona Bill Watch.